So welcome to the Insight Meditation Center, and my name is Gil Fronsvell, and I'm the teacher here, primary teacher. This is going to be a 6-week course in mindfulness practice, and primarily during the course we'll focus on mindfulness meditation. But most of the things I'm going to be talking about apply in daily life as well. And this is a very important thing to understand, that the line between meditation and daily life is an arbitrary line. And sooner or later, people who meditate realize how arbitrary that line is and become interested in how to live in daily life with the kind of integrity, the kind of intimacy, the kind of freedom that can be in meditation. Why should it only be in meditation you feel free? Why should it only be in meditation you feel peaceful or happy or feel like you have kind of a high degree of integrity? And then the challenge is to how to take the wonderful benefits, conditions that come with meditation and begin living that in your life. Not that you have to look like a zombie. You know, some people associate meditators with being really calm. And the unfortunate thing is that people think that I'm kind of calm. So I'm not a good spokesperson for, a passionate meditator. So don't use me as, the last word on what it looks like to be a, lifetime meditator. I'm just, who I am. And the point is not to be, in Buddhism certainly, but also in this practice here, the point is not to become somebody, but rather the point is to become free. And become free means you actually become freer to be who you are. You become free of what's extra. And what we're most concerned about in Buddhism is the extra, that stuff that causes you to suffer, or causes your behavior to bring suffering to others. So that kind of gets, as you meditate, just mindfulness meditation, the cause and conditions for suffering tend to shed and fall off. And what's left is not nothing. What's left is happiness, peace, calm. What's left is greater insight and understanding and wisdom about this life that we're living. So mindfulness can exist quite well without Buddhism. Buddhism cannot live without mindfulness. And mindfulness certainly is very key to the whole Buddhist enterprise. And it's kind of an interesting fact that that's the case, because what's required in Buddhism is not a doctrine, not a belief, but rather is an enhanced capacity to pay attention. So my mother, when I was small, she would tell me regularly, "Gil, pay attention. Pay attention." And mostly I didn't listen to her, which is what kids are supposed to do, right? And so it's my karma now as an adult. I mean, it's kind of tradition. That's the whole thing we do, is to pay attention. So what we'll do here over the next 6 weeks is I'll teach you some of the basic elements of mindfulness meditation, of using your attention in an enhanced way, in a way that hopefully is useful in your life. And the way it's done is systematically. It doesn't have to be done this way, but we do it systematically. So today I'll lay out the basics of the practice, including the very center of it for meditation, which is the breath meditation. Mindfulness, attention to your breathing. And then next week we'll talk about mindfulness of the body. It turns out that Buddhist spirituality puts a tremendous importance on being embodied, being connected to your body. You wouldn't believe that if you read a lot of the books about Buddhism, which is kind of intellectual and stuff. But if you go and hang out in practice centers, you find out that the body is really important, getting into your body, being in your body. Then the third week, I'll talk about emotions. Emotions are a big part of our life. We're not expected to leave our emotions behind, but rather to learn how in a wise way to include them in the field of attention. Then the fourth week, the subject will be thinking. And thinking is a big issue for meditators. And some people think that you're not supposed to think when you meditate. But rather than having that idea, our idea is that you want to learn in a wise way how to pay attention to thinking, so thinking doesn't get in the way, doesn't cause suffering, doesn't become an obstacle to becoming more peaceful and insightful. Then the fifth week, we're going to talk about the mind, and mind being something separate from thinking. And it's a very important week. And then the last week will be a lot about practicing in daily life, about taking this whole meditation practice to a whole different level beyond what the instruction has been up to that point. So those are the 6 weeks. And most of those weeks, there's a handout that we'll put out at the table out there. And this week, it's out there on the table now. It's this color here. Every week it's a different color. And it reviews some of the things I say in the class. And it also gives you some exercises you can do at home during the week that kind of can enhance this experience here. This is also found on our website, this handout, so you can download it from there somewhere. So we all can pay attention to some degree. And if you pay a little bit of attention to how you pay attention, what you'll probably discover is that you'll pay attention for a short period of time, and at some point you'll either get distracted from what you're paying attention to, and you'll go off into future thinking, past thinking, into fantasy. Or, if you stay connected to what you're paying attention to, you'll somehow start thinking about it. And you'll think about it in such a way that the thinking pulls you away from the experience. So, for example, you might, if I'm talking, if I say something brilliant or something horrible, you might start thinking about what I've said and not notice that I'm just continuing to talk, because you're kind of retrospective thinking about what just happened, what we just said. So you got hung up, in a sense, with the experience. So you paid attention, something happened, and somehow you got hooked, got caught, got involved in that experience. So you couldn't pay careful attention to the next thing that happened in the moment. What we're trying to do, so it's a very interesting phenomenon, because that place where we get hung up or we get distracted, get pulled away, is a very important key to understanding what motivates us, what our values are, what our fears are, what our clingings are, our hooks, our buttons, everything. And so what we're trying to do, one of the things we're trying to do here is to learn to pay attention to see what complicates our attention, where we get caught, what makes it difficult. Because the place we get caught is also the place where we're going to feel stress. And as many of you know, this practice that I'm teaching you here, the mindfulness practice, has been adopted in many clinical settings in this country as stress reduction, pain and stress management. And people who go to Kaiser and Sequoia and El Camino Hospital, Stanford Hospital, will take these classes, mindfulness-based stress reduction, and there they don't use the B word. And a lot of people who go there have no clue that the practice they're being taught at Kaiser comes from Buddhism. And that's good. And so the place we get hung up is often a very important window into understanding how we're most likely to suffer, or how we're more likely to cause problems in our life. So we start paying attention, which we all have the capacity to do, but we get interested in this practice. How is it that our ability to stay calmly connected to the present moment gets somehow disrupted? People who meditate will sometimes think that the disruption is the problem. Disruption sounds like a bad word, right? I got disrupted. Something, I got caught. When we do this meditation practice, we don't try not to kind of judge anything as being bad or inappropriate. Rather, we try to fold everything back into the attention. In other words, to notice this. Pay attention. What's going on? Notice this. Notice this. Oh, I just got caught. I just heard someone cough, and it reminded me that my friend was sick, and I'm wondering when I should go visit my friend in the hospital. And, I wonder how late Kaiser's open. And then I thought, I'm teaching a class. That's an example of kind of getting pulled in. And it was a pretty innocent example, but it could not have been so innocent. And so what we do is rather than saying, oh, that shouldn't have happened, I shouldn't have had that train of thought, what we try to do is to fold everything back into the attention. Oh, look at that. That's what a disruption is like. That's what it's like for the mind to get hooked and carried away. That's what it's like. That's what it's like. You understand that principle? This is a really important one. People who've been meditating for sometimes, 10 years haven't learned this one yet. They haven't learned that there's nothing, from the point of view of the mindfulness meditation, there's nothing that doesn't need to happen. There's nothing that you have to kind of say, no, that shouldn't happen. Rather, it's one more thing to learn to pay attention to. And if you learn to pay attention well, there's freedom to be found in attention. And this is one of the things I hope you get a teeny taste for, at least an intuitive idea from in the course of the 6 weeks, that in paying attention, there's a way of paying attention where you are not caught, trapped, oppressed, influenced, driven by what's going on, inside or outside of yourself. And that gives you a tremendous power to go about your life. If you have the ability not to be pushed around by your inner compulsions or the pressures from the outside. And we learn this by learning how to use the attention in a new way. And I hope that this is one of the things we'll learn as we go along here. We begin in the mindfulness meditation with paying attention to 2 things, to our posture and to our breathing. And with the idea that it's really helpful to have a good, stable posture, and also a posture that somehow expresses an attentive state. It's really great to see like a little kid, like a little toddler, who's got, really good if they're kind of only in their diapers, so you can see their naked torso, and they're really gotten interested in something. They sit with this erect back, and they're so attentive and upright. It's so beautiful to see this energy of awake and present. And sometimes you see it in adults, but you see it sometimes really clearly in these, uncontracted children's bodies sometimes. So, meditation, you can be a meditator and be a couch potato. It's possible. However, your whole meditation experience is improved if you let your body be a support for your attention. So it isn't just a mental thing. You're trying to become mentally attentive, but you kind of put yourself in a posture where your body is more likely to be, attentive. So I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. And then we use the breathing. And the breathing has a wonderful quality of being continuous. Pretty much we're always breathing. And so it's always something to connect to. There's a rhythm to breathing. It flows in and out. It comes and goes. And it's actually easier for the mind to pay careful attention to something that's changing in a very subtle, quiet way. If you fixate your eyes and don't let your eyes move at all, you can't see very well. In order for the eyes to see well, the eyes have to actually move a little bit. They're constantly shifting and moving. So in order to develop strong concentration, there's something really wonderful that happens when you follow the breathing that has a nice rhythm to it. And you're following the change that goes on with the breath. The breathing is also closely tied to our emotional life and our psychological life and our energetic life. And so much of how we live is affects our breathing. So, for example, if you get afraid, your breathing gets sometimes constricted and tight. If you're really relaxed and happy, breathing tends to be more relaxed and fluid. If you're nervous about something, you might breathe more fast. And if you're relaxed, maybe you breathe more slowly. There's all these different ways the breathing shifts, partly to give you more oxygen or less oxygen, depending what you need. If you're attacked by a lion, you need a lot of oxygen. So the breathing knows what to do. So if you're running a lot, for example, you kind of hyperventilate a little bit. So the breathing is very closely tied. And so as a person tends to connect to the breathing with their attention and follow the breath, one breath after the other, there's a reciprocal relationship with our attention and the breath. And it tends to create a calming effect on us. It's not always the case, There tends to be a calming effect. And most people who follow the breathing and get into it will find that they become much more calm and peaceful than they were before. It's very nice and helpful to become calm and peaceful. But in the mindfulness meditation, we don't hold that up as the great goal, to be calm and peaceful. The goal is to pay attention. So if you get more agitated as you meditate, which sometimes happens, then remember the goal is just, okay, let me pay attention to this. Let me fold this back into the meditation. Let me do mindfulness of agitation. And it might be really helpful sometimes. So for example, it might be something you haven't looked at very carefully in your life ever, that you've been holding at a distance. And as you sit, it's time to relax in meditation, you lower your guard. So if some of you don't want to lower your guard, don't do meditation. You lower your guard. And when you lower your guard, then this thing bubbles up. And then, oh no, now I have to look at it. And then you get agitated. But I'm meditating, supposed to be calm. And then you're more agitated because you're judging yourself. Just fold it in. Oh, okay, now I get to pay attention to what it's like to be agitated. So the breath is calming. It's also, because it's continuous, going back and forth, it's a wonderful place to train yourself to be in the present moment. And the trick for this mindfulness meditation is how to keep ourselves in the present. And you probably all find out very soon when we meditate how difficult it is to stay in the present moment. The mind has a mind of its own, and it will take you away. But we're trying to train the mind to stay in the present so we can offer careful attention to what is going on in the present. And from a Buddhist point of view, all the wisdom, all the insight, all the enlightenment that you need to have in your life will only be found when you're able to stay in the present. If you're not in the present, you're not going to find it. It's not going to be there. So the breath is a place where we train ourselves to calm down enough, to settle the mind, to concentrate the mind enough, so the mind can begin to stay present in the present moment. So breath meditation has a lot of functions. It's very beneficial. So I consider it kind of the foundation. And then from that foundation, then we expand the attention beyond that, eventually to include all of our life. So we'll start very narrow, just the breathing this week. Then next week the body, then emotions. It's kind of like we're expanding out and out and out. And by the end of the course, I hope you have some sense of how to bring this wonderful capacity of attention, this clear, non-reactive, non-judgmental attention to all aspects of your life. That's the goal. Make sense? So I'm going to talk a little bit about meditation posture. So for sitting meditation, there are basically two primary postures that people tend to use. One is sitting on the floor, the so-called cross-legged position, and the other is in a chair. And you're welcome to sit in either one. There are some little advantages, some small advantages sitting on the floor, but it's fine to sit in a chair. And in the iconography of Buddhism, Buddhism has this idea that far in the future there's going to be the next Buddha, and so they have sometimes statues of the next Buddha, and he's always sitting in a chair. So it's really fine to sit in a chair. So what I'll do is I'll talk about both, chair and sitting on the floor. The most important thing about posture is to have an alert spine. So sit in such a way that your spine is kind of alert, kind of upright. You don't want to be so upright you're tense, but you want to sit upright, so it's some sense of alertness. And also in such a way that you're not going to cause long-term problems. If you're stooped over a lot, meditating this way, most people, especially people who have a sedentary life, will probably find that their back will go out at some point. And it's really good to train yourself to sit with a good upright back posture, both for the chair and for the floor. Now, one of the ways we do that on the floor is classically we sit on a round cushion. It's called in Japanese a zafu, and the idea is to sit on the front third of it, so you're kind of sitting on the kind of the forward edge, so let your pelvis tip forward. And when you pelvis forward, it helps the knees come down, and it also creates a little curve in the lower part of your back. You don't want to overarch. You want basically the natural, maybe slightly more than the curve than natural curve. A little bit of sense of still strength there in your lower back. And what you want to do is you want to try ideally to have both knees on the floor and your butt on the cushion. And it's easier to get your knees down if you're elevated. That's, you sit on the cushion. If your hips are really tight, then sitting really high helps. You can get two cushions or build up a whole throne, and in order to get your knees down. If you can't get your knees down for any reason, then you can also, you can prop it up like this, or prop both of them up, get a sweater or something, and go like that. That's okay to do. And if you have that nice tripod of the 3 points, your knees and your butt, it creates a nice stable base for holding the rest of your torso upright. It's nice to have that low center of gravity and that wide base for sitting. You don't tend to have that in a chair, so that's one of the advantages of sitting this way. I recommend that for sitting on the floor, that you don't sit cross-legged, but technically you don't cross your legs, but rather it's called tailor fashion or Burmese fashion. You have one leg in front of the other, like how my arms are here, like this. So they're not actually crossed. And then like this, my arms. And also that's a lot more comfortable for people to sit full lotus or half lotus. People can do that. There's some advantages to sitting in the lotuses, but most people it's not realistic, because of knees and hips and stuff. And so this tends to be much more comfortable. Most people who are not used to this, it takes a while to kind of for the body to stretch out, and so you get comfortable with it. But it's well worth doing. Kind of like this, one in front of the other. Now, if you're sitting on a chair, the recommendation in the chair is definitely you don't cross your legs, but you have both feet flat on the ground, parallel to each other. So both the soles of the feet are firmly planted on the ground or on a cushion if you need support. And the trick there is you don't want to have your knees higher than your hips, because then it tends to push out the lower part of your back, and then it tends to get a strain there soon enough. So ideally your knees maybe be a little bit lower than your hips, or maybe just parallel to your hips. Some people do like to have their legs out sideways because it tends to give them a wider base and more support. So you're welcome to do that as well. If you're sitting on the mat, on the floor, there are some alternative ways of sitting, which are nice. Another way of sitting is you can get a bench. There are these wooden benches. I think we have a few in the corner, or Victor has one here. See the bench like this? You hold up really high so people. And you kind of slip it under your thighs, back your butt, and then you slip your legs underneath. You're on top and your legs go underneath. And so you're more like sitting on your knees. And that's a nice way of sitting. Another way of sitting is you take one of these round cushions and you have it upright like this. And you put it between your ankles and you sit down like this. Now you don't have the wide tripod kind of thing, but it's a way of getting kind of low center of gravity, and some people really like it this way. And some people can't sit cross-legged, so sitting this way they like it this way. Now if you're sitting in the chair, let's continue here on the floor a little bit. So as I said earlier, having the back straight is really important. And one way to help you do that, you can do this both on the floor and the chair, is you take your hands on either sides of your hips and on the ground or on the side of the chair, and push yourself up off the chair or cushion as hard as you can. And then as you let go of your arms, let your shoulders kind of roll a little bit back. And probably you'll find yourself sitting straighter now. Your chest a little bit more open, your shoulders perhaps hanging a little bit more. And that's a good, probably more alert, erect posture than you had before. If you're sitting in a chair, the recommendation is, if you can, don't use the backrest. Now, if people have all kinds of conditions in their back that require them to use a backrest, so it's fine to do that. But there's a variety of reasons for that. One is that you're more likely to kind of, when you use a backrest, to kind of lean into it and relax too much and fall asleep. And another reason is a little more subtle, and that is, at least in Buddhism, we're trying to develop a certain kind of ability to be self-reliant. And there's a connection between our physical body and our emotional life. And it's easier to discover how to be self-reliant emotionally or psychologically if you're self-reliant physically. And so if you're relying on something when you meditate, it's a small, subtle thing, but it's a little bit more harder to, you don't get that support to discover that inner self-reliance we're looking for. If you need to use a backrest, what we prefer, or to suggest to you, is that you use the support as low down as your back will allow. So have you can have a pillow really low down, so your lower back is supported, but your upper back is free, or as low as you can with your back. Now, some people have to use the whole backrest, and that's fine. And in fact, some people here at our center, and actually one of the people who teaches here at our center, do their meditation mostly lying down because of various kinds of injuries they have had. And so it's fine to do, laying down on your back as well. There's just some more challenges with falling asleep and stuff that goes on there. And if you want later, I can talk about that to some people. But so I'm going to sit up straight. And then the hands, we put the hands in any way where both hands are doing the same thing and they're comfortable. The classic Buddhist meditation posture for hands, the hands are together in front of the kind of just below the belly button. And kind of floating, not resting on anything, but floating up here, with the thumbs tips touching lightly. That's a classic way of doing it. Many people will do it like this, with their hands on their knees or thighs. I usually meditate this way, like this now. And the hands up, or pointing down, doesn't matter. What does matter, though, is that sometimes if you have your hands resting on your ankles all the way down, or if you have your hands too far forward on your thighs and your knees, it sometimes pulls the shoulders forward. And you over time, create a strain back here. So it also kind of pulls you down. People tend to slouch more easily. So it's possible, it's okay to get something like a cushion or a sweater or a towel and put it on top of your heel or ankles so your hands are held up higher. So held up so you don't have that strain back there. Or simply you can pull your hands in from your knee. And then the ancient texts, meditation manuals, all talk about how important it is to have your head squarely on top of your shoulders. Now, where else would it be? However, it's very easy for people for their heads to fall forward, or their chins to stick out like this, head go forward, or sometimes it turns to the side, tips to the side. But the idea is to keep it straight. And the ancients talked about lining up your ears with your shoulders. That's how it should be. So not forward. And also there's an idea in Buddhism that if your chin goes up like this, it's usually a sign that you're lost in thought. And if you pull your chin back down a little bit, that actually controls the wandering mind a little bit. You probably try it and you won't believe it. So there is also this idea that it's good to tuck your chin back and down a little bit when you meditate. You can do the same effect by opening up space between your last vertebrae and your skull. And actually I like that you open space rather than kind of pull down. Kind of puts the head in the same position. And in our tradition here, we instruct people to meditate with the eyes closed. It's not necessary to have the eyes closed. There are teachers in our tradition who do sometimes meditate with the eyes open. And often if people are really sleepy, we tell them, meditate with your eyes open. But it's nice. We recommend eyes closed. But if you've done other meditation practices before that involved eyes open and you're more comfortable that way, please, you can do that. And then the mouth is kept closed, and it said that it's helpful to have the tongue resting lightly against the palate, top of the mouth. So that's the basic elements of posture. you have any questions about the posture part? Yes, please.
I have learned at one point that females and males, there's a difference which hand is on top.
Huh?
Do you know about that?
No, I've never heard that.
Well, in Taoism they teach that.
Oh, that could well be, yeah.
From a Tao master I learned that.
Yeah. So you're welcome. You're welcome to do.
Now I don't know what it was.
Yeah, I don't know.
But there's a definite difference.
Yeah.
It has to do with the yin and yang energy flow.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that in Southeast Asia, or classically in India, the left hand was on the bottom, and then in Zen they switched it so the left hand is on top. And I think it's something like one hand is supposed to be more compassion, the other wisdom, and so there's some theory like that. So I learned in the Zen tradition to have the left hand on top, but there was never any differentiation in Zen between men and women. But if you find a difference, you're welcome. Yeah.
Sir?
Yes, please.
Do you ever meditate with the lights off or do you keep them on?
Both ways are fine. Usually, if you're really sleepy, sometimes sitting in front of a light can be helpful. Even with your eyes closed, or having a lot of light coming in can kind of stimulate you and keep you a little bit awake. And if it's really dark, maybe it's a little bit easier to fall asleep. But you can kind of experiment and see what works best for you. There's no hard and fast rule. Okay, so you got the basic posture. So we're going to do a guided meditation. So those of you who would like to try sitting on the floor, there's space here. There's more cushions up there. You can go get some. And otherwise you can stay in your chair. So get yourself into what feels like a stable and alert posture. Hopefully one that feels also somewhat relaxed. So this balance between being relaxed and alert is an important issue. And then gently close your eyes. And then please remember that the most basic thing we're doing is simply noticing, knowing what is happening in the present moment. It's really simple. Before you learn any ideas about getting concentrated or peaceful or making something happen, we're just noticing. So you might take a moment now, just notice how you are, what's going on for you, what's your own immediate experience, lived experience here and now. And as you pay attention to here and now, how easy is it to stay here and now? And are you operating any ideas that something is supposed to happen, that you're trying to accomplish something, more than just notice? In order to help us settle in and get connected to the present moment, it's often helpful at the beginning of a meditation session to take a few long, slow, deep breaths. Breathing in deeply, and then as you exhale, relaxing your body. Just letting go of whatever tension you can easily let go of. And then allow your breathing to return to normal. And for this mindfulness meditation, we're making no effort at all to breathe in any special way. If you've learned yogic breathing or any other kind of special breathing techniques, we don't breathe as a technique. We just let ourselves breathe whatever way we are. And then also at the beginning, it can be helpful to kind of briefly scan through your body to see if there's any simple places where you can relax some of the muscles in your body. So it might be possible to soften your forehead, your eyes. It might be possible to soften your jaws. Some people find it helpful to drop their mouth open for a moment and then float the teeth back together again. Float the lips back together. And that can kind of loosen up the jaw a little bit. A number of people carry tension in their shoulders. Even if it's not possible to relax the shoulders, maybe there can be a softening around whatever tension is in your shoulders. Perhaps you're able to soften a little bit in the chest. And also it can be helpful to relax your belly. Keep your stomach soft. Your belly maybe hangs forward a little bit. So first, breathing in deeply. Then second, you're breathing normally and then just scanning the body and softening whatever you can. That's easy to soften. And then next, see if you can get a global awareness of your body. Don't try too hard, but just whatever broad awareness of your body that you can establish. Letting your attention wander around your body, kind of from the inside, feeling it, sensing it. Feeling the contact of your body against your chair or the cushion. Then within your body, as part of your bodily experience, become aware of how your body experiences breathing. How does your body know that you're breathing or feel that you're breathing? What happens in your body as you breathe? What moves? What changes? What shifts? Some people can feel the movement of their belly going up and down, rising and falling, or their chest rising and falling, the rib cage expanding and contracting. Some people can feel the air coming in and out through the nostrils. If you have trouble finding your breath or connecting to the experience of breathing, you can put your hand perhaps over your diaphragm or in your belly, and maybe you'll feel the movement there. So wherever you feel you're breathing most predominantly in your body, let that be your home base. So you're going to try to cultivate your ability to stay in the present moment for the experience of breathing in that place. Feeling the shifts and changes and the in-breaths and the out-breath. And there might be a variety of things that make it difficult for you to stay continuous with the breathing. Be relaxed about that. And the idea is to just know what is happening. Know, I'm easily distracted. I'm easily concerned about other things. Just know that. The mind so easily wanders off in thought. As soon as you notice that's happening, then gently, smilingly, bring your attention back to your breathing. Take your awareness, your attention, enter into the experience of breathing as if it's something you can deeply trust. It's a good place to be. Try to notice, be alert enough to notice when you wander off in thought. And then soften, relax, back to the breath. But when you connect to the breathing again, to stay with it, do it with a kind of some sense of determination to hang in there with the breathing. So you can hang in there with the rhythm of many in-breaths and out-breaths in a row. You might have various concerns that are vying for attention or issues. See if you can let them be in the background. And in the foreground, you're just kind of tuning into the breath, being with the breath, being with the rhythm of breathing in and out, being with the physical experience of breathing. Perhaps as you do that, just being with it is a little more calming or settling. Some people find it helpful to very, very, very softly in the mind label the in-breath in, the out-breath out, or as the chest or belly rises, say rising, as it falls, say falling. Just a very quiet whisper in the mind that just encourages you to hang in there, to stay present instead of getting distracted. So we'll sit for 2 more minutes. In these last couple of minutes, see if you can stay connected to the breath, to the breathing. And then just as it's useful to take a few minutes to settle into meditation, it's useful to take a little bit of time to kind of come out of it. And the simple way to do this is to take a few deep breaths again. Feel your body as you breathe in deeply. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. I'd like to emphasize that mindfulness of breathing, breath meditation, works when it doesn't work. So it works, in a sense, if you can stay with your breath. You might think that you would say, well, it didn't work because I couldn't stay with my breathing. When it doesn't work, the primary thing we're doing, remember, is not staying with the breath, it's paying attention. So when it doesn't work, when you can't stay with the breath, then you're supposed to notice what it is that's making it difficult. What's going on? You're concerned about something, you're thinking about something, you're feeling something, something's going on, and you notice what that is. And if you notice what's making it difficult for you to be present, you're doing the practice. So either you're present, there's 3 options. Either you're present, or you're not present, in which case you don't have any problem. If you're not present, there's no problems. And then the third option is that you're present enough to know what's challenging you to be present. In this practice, we don't treat that as a problem. We just say, oh, this is just, let me notice this. Let me notice this. So if you go to a mountain stream, a very shallow, pure, clear mountain stream, it's possible at some of these streams that you look at the water and you don't see it moving. You think, oh, the water's standing still. But then you take a stick and put it in vertically into the water, and a little wake gets formed by the current. You say, oh, in fact, it's moving. But you need to have that reference point to see the current, make a current so you see it moving. So same thing with the mind. The mind needs to have a reference point so it can see itself clearly. And the breathing is that reference point. So, and some of you will learn, very soon need to learn, that your mind's just out of control. You were lucky if you got 2 breaths in a row. And the mind's just all over, or what breath? And some people are so caught up in their thoughts so easily that they didn't even hear that I gave instructions during the sitting. There's all kinds of things, or there might be strong emotions that come along, or strong sensations in the body. All kinds of things might come along. And but especially with the mind, the movements of the mind, movements of feelings. Some of the things you feel and think might be pretty obvious to yourself. But as you do this meditation practice, what you'll start doing is uncovering a lot of stuff about yourself that you didn't really know. So one of the things, for example, that people will learn if they try to stay with the breath, to have that reference point, is they'll learn how busy the mind is. And people say, I didn't know my mind was so active. I didn't know my mind was wandering off so much. I didn't know my mind was caught up in so many concerns. I didn't know it until I tried to have that reference point of the breath. So learning that, being attentive to that, is good. It's part of the practice. So that's why I say breath meditation works when it doesn't work. Isn't it great to do something you can't fail? So what kind of experience did some of you have in that 15 minutes of sitting together? Anything, you want to share anything or comment or question?
I think this was the first time after several years of looking at car accident and just worrying about my back, and I just sat on the floor and just didn't worry. And I felt my back kind of sank, and I felt that kind of fear happening, but I just said, focus on that I was focusing on.
So you said that this is the first time since a car accident a couple of years ago that you could sit down and not somehow get caught by the little tensions in your back. And if you get caught, I guess in the past, you also contract more, and it would spiral out. And here, you could just, the first time, you can sit down, just be with your breath, trust the breath, and somehow that your back was fine, wasn't a concern. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you. Yes?
There were a couple of times I thought everything was going fine, and then I feel the body comes forward, and the body comes from.
Yes.
And it's just my body movement. And it's just opening my eyes.
Yeah. It's common, if you're going to, anybody who meditates sooner or later will start experiencing the falling asleep in meditation. And people who are new to meditation, it sometimes happens because the habit, most people's habit is when you close your eyes for any length of time, it means you're going to go to sleep. So that habits can kick in. So it takes a while to kind of overcome those. The other thing is that it's said that a lot of Americans are sleep deprived. And I think there's a lot of people, probably you, who probably need to sleep more than you need to meditate. So you could you could open your eyes. That's one thing. You can also kind of arouse more physical or mental energy to kind of keep yourself more alert. Some people who are really sleepy in meditation find that they can actually, if they stand, do standing meditation. Do the same meditation practice as standing. That tends to keep them awake and alert and keep them going. And at any point, anybody here at IMC is welcome to do standing meditation. You don't have to do it sitting, if you feel like you need that energy to stay alert. Sleepiness is, part of the territory people have to work with. And opening your eyes can help. Yes?
I was actually relieved when you said Okay, I was just saying that I was relieved when you said there was 2 more minutes to go, even though I was really enjoying the experience and trying to stay focused. And I was curious to know, obviously this is something we need to practice, and do you have suggestions about how we might build up over time?
Great. So, this 6-week course works best if you go home now and meditate every day. After the 6-week course, you can do whatever you want. But you can do whatever you want now also. But it just works better because it actually builds. And if you go home and try to put this to practice, you get some experience on it with it. And what you learn over the course of the week will actually be a foundation for next week. It turns out it's easier to pay attention to your body if you have an ability to pay attention to your breath. It's easier to pay attention to your emotion if you have an ability to pay attention to your body. And it's easier to pay attention to your thoughts if you have an ability to be attentive to your emotions. And it's easier to pay attention to your mind if you have an ability to pay attention to your thoughts. So it builds, right? So anyway, so there's some more familiarity you can get over the week. So I'd encourage you to, this first week, every day to meditate 20 minutes. And if you're new to meditation, do 20 minutes. And if you're not new to meditation, you could do more if you want. But do 20 minutes. And then next week I'm going to suggest 25 minutes, and the following week 30 minutes. And then I think we level off at 30 minutes. And then afterwards you can decide to go back if you want. So that's my recommendation, if that's possible for you. Many people find it most useful to meditate early in the morning, before the kind of the day begins and kind of society wakes up a lot and your phone is likely to ring or stuff. It's an ancient tradition to get up early in the morning and meditate. Some people find, for whatever reason, for many reasons, that the late afternoon or the early evening or late evening works better for them. Find what works best for you. But also consider that when you sit down to meditate, that you're really going to keep that as a meditation time. Because there's all kinds of really important things that will pop up that seem like, I should do that instead. Like it might occur to you that it's really necessary at this moment to defrost the freezer. And so the idea is, when you sit down to do your 20 minutes, you don't want to be disturbed by, okay, you're going to do it. And it's also useful to designate some part of, if you have a big enough home, some corner of your bedroom or some place that's your designated meditation place. And not much else happens there, if possible. So that it's kind of like your associations you have with that place is coming to meditate. The power of association can be very helpful. And for the same reason, it's also said that it's not useful to meditate in your bed, because it has other associations. And it's also helpful to wear loose-fitting clothes. In fact, if you have a tight belt, it's useful to undo your belt before you meditate. Some people want to know, how do you keep time for length of time? It's not so useful to have a clock and keep opening your eyes to look and check. That's not useful. So it's, having some kind of timing system is good. And there's all kinds of timing systems, electronic systems now, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. It can even be a kitchen timer as long as it doesn't tick a lot. But even some phones, I think, have timers in them. Some people have recorded and done a recording, like a digital recording, of 20 minutes of silence, and then rung a bell at the end. And so you plug in your tape or your CD or whatever, and meditation CD, and you play the silence, and then ding, ding, for 20 minutes. So you feel like that. I think on our IMC's website, somewhere you can download onto your computer a meditation timer, or you can play it off the computer or something, and so it'll ring. I've never tried it, but what?
It's an MP3 file. We'll just play for, I think it's 15 various times like that.
Yeah. You need an MP3 player or a computer that plays MP3, and you can get it that way. Other questions or comments? Yes.
How long did we meditate this evening?
About 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
15 to.
Do you recommend ever listening to music, like meditating?
Do I recommend music or something? No. Now, it's certainly wonderful to meditate to music, And it's wonderful to, all that. But the idea is here, there's something very different we're trying to do here with this practice here. And that is to discover how to enter into a present moment state of attentive and clarity and calm without being helped. And you can be helped, but then you have a crutch. And we're trying to find out how to do it ourselves. And what that requires of you is to really learn yourself really well. If you're using something else as a prop to help you, you actually bypass that self-learning that has to happen, that allows you some kind of spiritual depth. So some people like guided meditations. It's fine to use them some, but in the long term, you're aiming at a situation where you're just relying on yourself. Now, after you've done your 20 minutes of meditation with us this way, then you're welcome to do 20 minutes with music. Yes.
So I found myself kind of using a mental prop. I believe that you or someone that I've heard in the past suggested, which was to stay on the breath by counting the breath. I was counting up and down and 20 and back, and that just really helped me stay on the breath. But is that cheating?
Yeah. It's allowed. It's allowed. We consider it more of a concentration practice. And I sometimes teach it to people. I did it for years, breath counting. It's what I was taught in Zen. And it's a great practice. We think of it more of a concentration practice than an attention practice. However, I teach it to some people when their minds are just really out of control. They just go off all the time. And then counting can really help kind of ground a person, anchor the person. So you're welcome to do it. The usual way of doing it is to count 1 to 10. You can do it your way, but 1 to 10. Each breath gets a count of 1. So 1, 2, 3. And then when you get to 10, you start over again at 1. If you lose count in the process of going up to 10, don't try to figure out where you're at, just go back to 1. And if you get to 12 or 13, that's a sign that your mindfulness has slipped. But instead of counting, what our tradition uses is what we call mental noting or labeling. Remember I said use in, out, or rising, falling? An idle mind will get in trouble. So the mind kind of wants to think. So it's kind of a bit hard to kind of stop the mind from thinking and getting caught by your thoughts. So what you can do, is a little technique, is to use a very, very subtle, primitive kind of thought, a name or a label. So the thinking mind is engaged. So it feels like it has a place in life. And so it's helpful. So it's encouraging you stay there, pay attention there. So with the breathing, it could be in, as you breathe in, out as you breathe out. And it's very, very soft, super soft. It's almost like you're doing nothing at all. But it's mostly just like this little puff that's encouraging you stay there with the in. Experience that in-breath. Experience that out-breath. Some people prefer, the way I was taught in Asia was to label it rising, falling. So as this belly or the stomach or the chest rises, say rising. As it falls, falling. And again, so it's a way of, so that way the thinking mind is not idle, it's engaged in the process and helping you. And some people find that helpful. Yes?
I found something very interesting tonight. I was just wondering if you could address it a little. And it was maybe at some point we'll be talking a little bit about physical ailments and all. It's a little while ago when I was meditating and I was starting to, I noticed that I had this stomach problem that seems to gurgle a lot, right? And as I practiced in my I Chi and was practicing my breathing techniques and things that I do, I was able to, it subsided. And then I've had a really nice 2 months worth of nice rhythmic breathing, able to meditate, feeling comfortable. And tonight, I really appreciate getting into the position of feeling it all over. And then I started in, and it started up again. And so I'm thinking, well, I tried all my little, feel the stomach, feel the in, and finally, I focused, as you had stated, on the situation and just kind of like let my breathing take over. And it was a total breathing I had not even experienced. It was a very almost quicker, shallower breathing. And it wasn't one that I normally would have been comfortable with, but it worked.
Great.
And so does the body fall into its own rhythm? I mean, I would think that the body would fall into it and help correct physical ailments, but does that make sense to you at all? Or?
I understand you. few things. One is that there's a lot of physical ailments that are either come from or are strengthened by stress. And in fact, stress kind of finds the weak link in the system. And so wherever your weak link is, your stomach or your heart or something, stress can somehow, it's not like stress is causing the problem, but it's the weak link, right? So something like meditation, which can relax and let go of a lot of stress, can stop that stress, can stop that kind of some ailments can get a lot better with meditation. Some heart conditions, a lot of things. There's no guarantee. I'm not a doctor. But more than that, as a person really gets settled into the present moment and starts developing some concentration in the present moment, not only are we not producing stress, we're actually doing the opposite. We're starting to produce all kinds of chemicals and energies and emotions that are actually healing in and of themselves. They're very helpful. Good energies. There's joy, there's rapture, there's deep states of peace, there's good energy that kind of begins coursing through the body, which can be healing and helpful. But there's no way of knowing whether meditation is going to help any particular individual for their particular issues. And in terms of the breathing, when we do mindfulness meditation, mostly we just trust the way we are breathing. And if it's shallow and fast, we just tune into that. Like, okay, this is what now I'm learning to pay attention to a fast and shallow breath. This is what it's like, as opposed to trying to shift it and change it. And then if you just use your attention is kind of like I think of attention, awareness, as kind of like giving something room to unfold. So I'll tell a story, and then we'll go home. If you go into an elevator, a small elevator, it's made for 2 people, and it's you and 4 really big, ugly, disgusting people with ketchup down their shirts and stinking and all that. And you have to squeeze in there between them all, and they're like, you're as high as their belly button, right? And just, you probably feel claustrophobic, and you're happy to get out of the elevator. Now, if you go into a huge cathedral, and it's the 5 of you, the 4 big people and you, and they're spread out evenly throughout this huge, cathedral, then it's easy to love all humanity. Right? And because you're not being oppressed by them so closely. So the same way with the mind. If the mind is writing things really close, or there's too much input coming on at once, the mind's so busy and active and concerned, and so attached, so clinging, it's claustrophobic, and it can feel very uncomfortable. As we develop awareness, the attention, it's kind of like making more room in the mind. Awareness or attention can have the sense of being like space. It's actually the more centered you are and more grounded you are in attention or awareness, the bigger this mental space is in your mind. And so you have more space for all the stuff in your mind. And then you have a much different relationship to all this stuff than if you are claustrophobic in the mind, if it's crowded in there with all the stuff. And so as we make room in the mind, then some of the mental and physical structures in the mind that need to unravel, need to unfold, need to evolve in some way, have the space in the room to evolve or to change or unravel. Some of the things that happen will unwind. Sometimes giving space or awareness to what's going on, just noticing and giving space, allowing it to be there, it's kind of like pulling the cork out of a bathtub full of water. The water will drain out. So certain tensions, certain things will just drain out. Other things will grow and develop in that space. And so there's beautiful qualities, wisdom, clarity, integrity, patience, concentration. A lot of things will develop and grow in that space. So the awareness, bringing awareness, attention to what's going on, learning to be relaxed in that attention. So you're relaxed in what's there, even if it's uncomfortable. Even what's there is uncomfortable. Being relaxed in how you pay attention to the discomfort, in a sense, creates that space. And then what I think a lot of meditators learn, you learn to trust the innate wisdom or the innate intelligence that can unfold towards health. It's almost as if there's an innate movement towards health. Even if you're dying, people who die, who meditate, will find that spiritual life or meditative life can actually move people as they're dying to a certain kind of wholeness. So you might not cure the illness, but you become whole. So you can die. So there seems to be an innate intelligence that kind of moves towards wholeness. And so you need to get, a lot of it has to do with getting out of the way. Getting out of the way. And meditation is one of those ways that helps. But you can't get out of the way and not be present. You have to get out of the way and be present. You have to be present and then get out of the way. So there's a thing of attention. Pay attention and be relaxed. And you have to pay attention to it. Include everything in your attention and be relaxed and relaxed. Make sense? It's supposed to, you're supposed to learn how it makes sense over the next weeks or months or years. So it takes a while to get the hang of this. So thank you for coming. It was nice to have you. And so next week we'll talk about how to include the body, which includes some degree talking about physical discomfort as well. Thank you.